Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 133, Connection We Crave, Why We Need It and Why We May Not Have It. So first of all, Happy New Year to all of you, and may this year be better than the last. I think we said that last year too, didn't we? You know, I think one of the most difficult things I'm hearing lately from a lot of you is pandemic fatigue, and I have it too. We're all wishing we could just hang out with people we care about and not worry about anyone getting sick. That's why I think this month we're going to focus on connection, why we need it, and what healthy looks like and what it doesn't. And even though it's so important and we know that, many of us are not that great at it. So all month, we're going to dive into this concept and bring along many of the truths we've been talking about on the show all along, but I really don't think we can talk about them enough. I think they're so important, and I think so many times I sit down with clients and they don't understand why it doesn't come easy to them, okay? So for today, though, let's explore the value of connection and how we may underestimate that it's such a core need. Now, here's a wonderful quote from an article I came across entitled, Connection is a Core Human Need, and We Need to Be Better at It, on contactmapping.com. And I've included the link in the show notes so you can go check that out. Quote, feeling a connection is a core human need, but many are terrible at it. A real, genuine human relationship has the power to heal the traumas of everyday disingenuous, loneliness, and isolation. It is the experience of oneness by having shared experiences, relatable feelings, and other similar ideas. They say it's something we naturally gravitate towards and seek out, being intensely social beings. In the process of restoring a connection with others, we realize that we're actually creating a connection with ourselves. By being seen and loved for who we are, how we think, what we feel, we learn it's okay to be who we are, end quote. Wow, that just really captures it, I think. It is so important. It's not a want, it's a need. So this month we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about why it's hard to let people in. And we've gotten into this before about early boundary violations and a lack of vulnerability in the family, lack of nurturing, that kind of thing. We're going to talk about self-abandonment, rescuing, and other fun behaviors that certainly get in the way of connection. We're going to talk about finding trustworthy people to begin trusting and opening up to, and how do you go about doing that? And then finally, we're going to finish out the month talking about building connection, emotional intimacy. Okay, so why is connecting so important? Well, first of all, now this is in safe relationships, we feel valued. We feel like we matter because someone is paying attention to us, spending time with us. They've married us. They've moved in with us. They seek us out. They call us up. They text us. We feel valued. We feel seen. We feel known as a separate individual. You hear me talk about that all the time, and I'll never stop. That our thoughts and feelings and choices are different and separate from everyone else, and they are valuable in and of themselves. So we're known for real, not who we think people want us to be, but who we actually are on the inside. I think true connection means revealing the good, the bad, and the ugly appropriately over time. I think that's why support groups work really well if they're done right, because it can become a safe space to share what's really going on in your life. And you can listen to what's going on in theirs. And then you can decide what you want to do about what's going on in your life. But what you're sitting in matters, and it's not minimized or shamed or belittled or disowned. Another reason why we need connection is so we don't feel as alone. That one's a little obvious. that we're not the only ones, and that even if they aren't walking through the same thing we are right at the moment, we can have loved ones around us to help us feel safe and loved. That they're there no matter what happens. That they're the port in the storm. Another asset of connection is that we can share life. What's the point at the end of the day if there's no one to share it with? It's usually that part of the movie, near the end where the main character realizes that even when they finally got their dream, quote unquote, it feels a little bit empty without the loving relationship or relationships they had to leave behind to become that success, or they thought they had to leave behind. So sharing life, all of it, with someone else. Isn't that the first thing we do when something awful happens or something wonderful happens? We pick up the phone. We tell someone. We want to share it. We don't want to keep it inside. Another reason is to share adventures. There's bonding moments. I think it brings more meaning when you can share it with someone else. Not that alone time and solitude isn't very healing. It is, and we need that as well. But it meets different needs than connection does. Sharing adventures together can bolster your self-esteem, mirror back who you are, think back over the years where you and your best friend faced your fears together, how you felt stronger together just having them there, that they stood by you or you stood by them. We feel empowered when there are folks around us. Another big reason is to share our hurts and our joys, to learn and to grow. We can't really get healthier all by ourselves. I watch people try to do it all the time. We can read all we want, listen to the podcast, which is great, but the real road test is going to be in our relationships in the messy fashion. We need to process things. We need to try out new behaviors. We need to figure out where we suck. We need to see it in real time where we practice vulnerability and we practice taking a risk. Like when you show compassion and forgiveness to someone, when that's not usually your thing. When you allow yourself to receive love and acceptance or forgiveness yourself. When you allow redemption. That's what makes it real. But it's not real unless it's vulnerable and it's authentic and it's shared. Again, this is with safe people. We're going to get into the rest of this month a little bit more about what is not safe and why, and how you can practice being vulnerable with safe people. Connection, we know, lowers anxiety and depression. This has been well researched. And I can tell you just hands-on from working with clients over the years, this is so true. I've seen panic attacks go away over time. I've seen someone's motivation increase as the healing begins in healthy relationships for them. When I have done women's groups and men's groups over the years, I just watch the healing and the power of support around the table that I alone could not give the client in that way. I'm just one person. That was the healing component. It was the family you never had at the dinner table supporting you. Conversely, those without connection have a much higher risk of diabetes, stroke, and other chronic medical conditions. Loneliness and lower self-esteem go hand in hand, which I think leads to a lack of self-care. So you imagine the stress increases as our fear of facing life alone increases, but we're not sharing our feelings, right? There's no one to share them with, or there are, but we're not connecting with those people. And so we stuff our feelings literally and figuratively, and we stuff our needs, making us even more overweight and unhealthy, as well as stressing out our hearts, et cetera, et cetera. You get it. You already know all that. So it's detrimental to our health. You've heard me talk about also, and you've heard it in the news, how belongingness is linked to longevity. It helps us live longer. And it's interesting. I was reading the other day, we think it's really down to our need for survival. It's biologically based. And, it is said we were originally in clans and tribes to secure food and shelter and keep each other safe, like all the other mammals do. But that hasn't changed as much as we may like to think. Look at it. We join groups. We join educational ones, sports groups, religious groups, and political ones to be linked with like-minded individuals because we think that empowers us and helps us feel safe. We know that babies and children won't develop physically, emotionally, or cognitively very well without good, safe bonding and interacting with caregivers. There's tons of years of research around that. There's failure to thrive. There's stunted development. Even babies that were fed and clothed but not interacted with really suffered. The next one is the ability to grieve. Yes, we need to sit with ourselves and sit in our pain, but we need someone to honor that anger, that hurt, that sadness, that loneliness, that hopelessness, that despair, that overwhelm, that fear, the fear of being swallowed in the abyss. We need people, good people around us to feel safe enough to fall apart. Whether we're grieving a current loss or we're grieving past trauma, unmet needs in our childhood, especially when we're grieving how we've messed things up for ourselves, how we've let ourselves down. That's the worst to share. I think it's one of the most vulnerable things to share, how we've let ourselves down. And to be able to reveal that with safe people and to be able to heal that because we revealed it. And finally, and I think a culmination of sorts, is connection helps our need to trust ourselves. You've heard me talk about self-trust a lot because it's a big deal. Because we need to make sense. We need that connection with others so that we can share our thoughts and our feelings and our needs and our beliefs and our fears. And we need that validated, that no, you're not crazy, and here's why. I would feel the same way, or I was thinking the same thing, or this is why it makes sense that you would think that, or believe that. This is why it's valuable what you need. So all that mirroring and all of that validation is so important because then we can take that in, internalize it, and own it and trust it as our truth. That's what was supposed to happen when you were a kid. People were supposed to be not perfect, but healthy enough to say, no wonder you're angry. Your brother just hit you upside the head. Or you're sad because no one wants to play with you today on the playground. Or you're scared, or you're lonely, or you're worried, or you're frustrated, or you're bored, or you're curious, or you're excited, or you're anxious, or you're content. Kids need to be able to label what they're feeling so that they can say, oh, okay, right, well, that gels with what I'm thinking and feeling on the inside. Thank you for putting words to that. I'm not crazy. And more importantly, there's nothing wrong with what I'm feeling. You know the deal. If you have parents who can't own their own feelings or never did, they're going to have a hard time validating yours because now guess what you're doing? You're making them uncomfortable. So if you didn't get it as a kid, and as you listen here all month, I want you to think about, okay, that did some damage, but you can heal that. And we can get some needs met now. So all month, as we're walking through this, I want you to give some thought as to where your relationships are. Who comes to mind when I say that? Who is in your life that matters? And how much do you share? Now, I want to talk about this for a moment because this can be really misconstrued. I'm not talking about when you struggle to have any boundaries and you overshare, TMI. You tell people too much, maybe not the right people. Maybe it's been used against you and maybe now you don't share anything. Think about your experiences. When I say share, I mean we share over time in an appropriate relationship. They share too. We're not the only ones, right? So it's a mutual connecting and you kind of feel it and it happens organically and it's safe and they don't give you reasons to think that it's not. That's why over time is a key phrase. You want to test it and you want to make sure it's never used against you in an argument You want to make sure that they're not uncomfortable with how you feel. They don't use humor as a deflection. They don't get angry when you're upset. They don't shame you for having feelings. They own their own needs, so they don't shame you around your needs, saying, what do you need that for? That's ridiculous, kind of thing. So think about who's around you, how healthy they are. If you're not sure, go back and listen to some episodes around boundaries, self-esteem, toxicity in relationships, so you can get a good gauge as to where these people are. Not to judge them. This is really for you to make a healthy assessment of reality. Because it's not fair to them, really, to get super frustrated that they can't be what you need if they don't have the capacity. Now, their choice to work on that is a whole nother episode. But for now, just think about who's around you. And second, what have they demonstrated, if at all, that they are comfortable being vulnerable themselves, using I statements, telling you what's really going on underneath the surface? Do they take responsibility for their thoughts and feelings, or is it bitching about everybody else all the time? Because that's not what you want to connect with there. That's victim stance. That's not really interest in problem solving and being really vulnerable, believe it or not. It may look like it on the surface, but it's not. And then finally, how comfortable are you revealing to whom, why or why not? What are you afraid of sharing? And I want you to think about, what outcome am I afraid of if I share X, Y, and Z? Am I not going to be accepted? Are people going to think less of me if they knew that about me? So that's important, and that speaks to you making peace with that yourself, but also sharing it with someone else and they don't fall over is actually very healing for you. Because that means it's okay. It's not great what happened. They're not saying that, but they're saying you're a good person who struggles with this, who made that mistake, who has learned their lesson, who's living differently today, all that stuff. We need to hear that. We need to know, essentially, that it's okay to be who we are, be where we are, share that with someone, and for that to be safe. Because you know, until you own the problem, nothing's going to get better. So today we talked all about how this month we're going to get into exploring the concept of healthy, vulnerable connections. We're going to talk about why we may struggle to make and keep them, and how to work on having more meaningful ones every day. Because that's why we're here, guys. We're not just here to label the problems. I was never happy enough with that as a counselor and a coach. I want to know, okay, yes, let's figure out what happened and what caused this. But then how do you fix it? How do you heal it? How do you make it healthier? How do you make it different? That is the magic of personal growth. Thank you for joining me today. May you stay healthy, safe, grounded. Hold on to hope and gratitude this week. Focus on going within yourself and finding moments of peace. Be sure to check the show notes at ownitpowercast.com and sign up for the newsletter each Tuesday. That's where you get the bonus downloads from all the episodes and all the great info. And thank you so much for continuing to share this podcast. Let's keep it going, guys. So, pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you could begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.